Hi everybody, Steve here at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, and I'm just sitting here in my car waiting for the gates to open. They don't open till 8 o'clock, and I'm here a little bit early. And today I'm searching for the gravesites of the ANDEWS sisters. The famous ANDEWS sisters, Laverne, Maxine, and Patty, were the first girl group superstars here in the U.S. There were a few very popular girl groups before the ANDEWS sisters, such as the Boswell sisters, the Pickens sisters, and the 3X sisters, but none of those groups even came close to the popularity of the ANDEWS sisters. During their career, the three ANDEWS sisters sold an estimated 80 to 100 million records and were the most popular female vocal group during the first half of the 20th century. They had more than 100 hit songs, and 46 of them reached top 10 on the charts, which was even more than Elvis or the Beatles. They appeared in 17 Hollywood movies and were true superstars of their swing and boogie-woogie era. This was popular music from my parents' and grandparents' generation of the 1930s and 40s, but they were also still very popular in the 1950s and 60s when I was growing up. They had their first number one hit in 1937 with By Mir bis Duchesne, which means that you're grand. This became an internationally popular song, and apparently was a favorite in Germany during World War II, until the Germans realized that the songwriters were Jewish. Some of their other popular songs that you might recognize are the Beer Barrel Polka, Beat Me Daddy, 8 to the Bar, the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree, Pistol Packin' Mama, and Don't Fence Me In, which were both duets with Bing Crosby, and Rum and Coca-Cola. Most of these were hit songs in the 1940s, which is why this group is still so identified with the World War II years. Patty was the lead singer, and her gravesite is located at Westwood Village Memorial Park, and I'll visit her final resting place next. I would really love to know why she chose not to be buried with her two sisters, who are both laid to rest here in the great mausoleum near their parents' final resting places. It seems like there's always one person in every family who wants to do their own thing. On the other hand, she did spend almost her entire life with her sisters. So maybe she just felt like that was enough and that she didn't need to spend eternity with them as well. All three sisters were born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but they all died in very different cities. Laverne died from cancer in Brentwood, California on May 8, 1967, at the young age of 55. Maxine lived to be 79 years old, dying in Cape Cod, Massachusetts on October 21, 1995. And while doing a little bit of research for this video, I discovered something kind of shocking about Maxine, shocking in a bittersweet kind of way, and I'll share that with you in a minute. Sadly, as I've mentioned in previous videos, the Great Mausoleum has been locked, and the general public is no longer allowed inside to visit. So these photos on their Find a Grave Memorial page are as close as we can get to the final resting places of Laverne and Maxine. Patty's gravesite in Westwood is the only one that we can actually visit in person. So back to Maxine and her very surprising and very unexpected secret. In 1941, Maxine married her manager, Lou Levy, or maybe he pronounced it Levi, but they separated in 1949. In an online article, Maxine's daughter shared that her mom was later in a long-term relationship with her new manager, Linda Wells. They were life partners and spent the rest of their lives together, but back in the 60s and 70s when they were together, there was no such thing as legal same-sex marriage. And even if you'd lived together for 10 or 20 years and were technically spouses, legally you had absolutely no rights. And if, for instance, something happened to one of you and you were in the hospital, you were typically just considered a friend, and often were not even allowed to visit the person in the hospital or definitely to make any decisions regarding their health care. So in order to protect themselves legally and financially, they did something that I think I've only heard about once or twice before. Maxine adopted Linda as her daughter in order to give her legal and financial rights and protections. I'm not shocked that they were together as a couple. I guess I'm just shocked that they had to go to such extreme measures to be a loving couple who could legally and financially take care of one another until the end. And I guess I was also a little surprised that I had never heard that Maxine was a member of the gay community. But this was 50 years ago, so if people are still being forced by our society to remain in the closet today, in 2022, you can imagine how much more difficult it would have been to come out of the closet back then. As I always say, you sure can learn a lot in cemeteries. So now let's head over to Westwood Village Memorial Park and the final resting place of Patty Andrews. By the way, am I the only one who didn't know about Maxine and Linda? Better late than never, I guess. Of the three sisters, Patty Andrews lived to be the oldest. She died in Northridge, California on January 30th, 2013 at the age of 94. She was also cremated, and her ashes are inurned here along with her husband's at Westwood Village Memorial Park. Her cremated remains are located in the Garden of Serenity Columbarium, which is an outdoor columbarium, which I'm sure many of you will recognize because I've been here so many times before. On those previous trips, I just didn't know that she was also laid to rest here. There are so many famous people buried or interred here in this tiny little cemetery that it's just impossible to visit everyone in a single trip. Patty was married twice. Her first husband was Marty Melcher, who later went on to marry Doris Day, and her second husband was Melvin Weschler. In 1945, he was the pianist for the Andrews Sisters. They married on Christmas Day, 1951, and remained married until her death nearly 60 years later in 2013. He also became her manager and encouraged her to go solo, which resulted in the breakup of the Andrews Sisters as a group. All good things eventually come to an end, but the Andrews Sisters certainly had a good run. If you watch my videos on a regular basis, then you may recognize this courtyard is the columbarium where David Nelson, Doris Roberts, Florence Henderson, and so many other famous people are also laid to rest. And I'm going to pan around here and I'm going to zoom in so you can see the epitaph which reads, "Of the Andrews Sisters." Even though their music really takes you back to that very nostalgic time in history, it's also just timeless great music that's still popular today and is still being covered today. So if you enjoyed today's trip to the past, I hope you'll join me on another one by clicking and watching this video here. Until next time, thanks for sharing the memories, everybody.